Mark, to start off, icebreaker time. What does culture mean to you? This is a manufacturing culture podcast. Would love to hear your take on what culture is.
It's a great question. I've thought about it a lot. I mean, obviously, I've been in a number of different organizations and run a few as well. I think culture is incredibly important because how you develop and enrich your culture and has to be a massive focus for an organization, whether it's a CXO level individual or someone on the front lines. Your business and your company is only good as the people and the culture that you have. So fostering and engendering a positive culture where people lean into conversation, that you're open, as a senior manager, to hearing from, in some cases, younger staff about what their ideas are, allowing for ideation to happen, allowing for people to fail. I think that's one thing I've learned in my career, is learning when you fail, what is it that led to that, and ultimately fostering a culture that allows for people to fail and fail fast. I think that's the most important thing, right?
Absolutely.
The ability to raise your hand and say, hey, I've got a great idea, or hey, this didn't go the way we expected it to, and here's what we should do differently moving forward, I think is incredibly important. And mirroring and sort of living that culture as a senior manager or CXO is incredibly important for younger individuals to see, and then the whole team to see. So culture to me is, if you don't get that right in a business, it's not a business that's going to survive. I just don't think it is. Or, you're going to be churning through people because the culture isn't there and it's not in place. It's not a place that they want to be. We spend 8 to 10 hours a day online and in person with people that we have to work with. So best to have a culture that you love and a group of people you love to work with as well.
What has been some of the biggest rewards and what are some of the biggest challenges that you've encountered?
Yeah, I think we're early days. I mean, there's challenge with this. And I think what I would say to anyone who's looking at this issue, it is a massive issue. It is a generational issue.
Yeah.
Right? It seems like, how do you solve for something as complex as this? Because there are so many actors involved in influencing how this works, right? Government, employers, schools, educators, etc., parents, and students. And so it seems daunting up front, but I know in my experience and just watching the conversation about men's mental health in America, we still have a lot of work to do there, very clearly. But at least the conversation has moved from no one talking about it to a lot of people talking about it.
Yep.
And I think that's the encouragement. It's you've got to have the long view and say, this is going to take a generation or two to get to a place we all wanted to get to. So we have to be patient and we have to be measured in how we approach the work, but be patient that it is coming. And the same here. I think when I look at the challenges I just mentioned, particularly, we don't have, when we lens out and look at it, and you can go to skilledcareers.org, our website, and we sort of present our approach to what we're looking at here. If you look at individuals between the ages of 10 and 24, right? Those that are coming into potential opportunities for CTE programming, career technical education programming, or those that are maybe thinking about rejobbing because they've dropped out of college or they're coming out of the military, there's about 70 million people in America we could be talking to. Right now, there's about 10 to 11 million CTE students in America. That's only about 16% of that population.
Wow.
Our argument is, well, okay, if we do a better job up front with things like Skills Jam, and some of our other partners are having these conversations and bring together and align our messaging around how awesome a skilled career can be for you as an individual, economically, quality of life, work-life balance, all those things, then we can actually increase that 16% to, let's just say, 25%, right? 9 points. And that 9 points equals about 6 to 7 million workers. And you're also taking, in some cases, students who are pushed down 2 tracks. And I'll talk about, I think, where the positive is, and some of the things we're starting to see is, when you talk to counselors, and one of our partners is the American School Counselor Association. The other is Skills USA, which is the largest student member-led CTSO in the US. When you talk to them, one of the challenges is they have very limited time to talk about a career. And in a lot of ways, over generations, we've focused on 2 tracks. The military, and there's a high incentivization to go into the military. There's a ton of marketing about going into the military. Right now, if you watch an NFL game, you'll see build submarines. Why is that? Because they're struggling to get people who can build submarines for national defense.
Right.
But they've been really good in the past. They're struggling now with recruitment, but they're spending upwards of $750 million to over $1 billion marketing around the military.
Wow.
Complement to that, when you talk to counselors. The other place they focus is on 4-year degrees, because we've been telling parents and their kids that a 4-year degree is the way you make it in America. The reality is colleges are spending about $1.1 to $1.2 billion a year marketing to parents and students. So you've got $2 billion of marketing effort. I would argue if you look at skilled careers and look at the disaggregation of marketing by those that need skilled workers, it's probably on the same level, but it's so disaggregated. The messaging is not the same. We're not delivering through something inspirational to younger students, and we need to focus our efforts collectively.
You've spent a long time, I think it was over a decade, I read in your bio, in different various leadership positions. How has your view on leadership evolved over time?
I think the first thing I'd say is I've learned more from my worst managers than my best managers. But in all seriousness, I think very early on I had incredible managers. I've had mentors that, anywhere from my anthropology professor I mentioned in college through to some of my early mentors in my consulting career who were incredibly giving of time. But I think what shaped me is that was just the good example that was out there. The great example was out there. It's like, oh, okay, that I want to emulate that. It's when you had those managers who were, for whatever reason, not looking out for you. I think those were the traits that I said, oh, that's not, I know how that feels. I don't want other people that I may manage someday to feel that way. And I think that's what I've learned in my travels is I've had great mentors and managers, but those that have taught me what not to do are the ones that I would probably throw in the dustbin of history.
Yeah.
But in part of that was those that were really good at managing were the ones that taught me it's okay to fail. Those that took that failure and made it my problem or pointed the finger at someone else or myself and didn't say, hey, how could I have helped you? Or what is it that we're going to do to fix the problem? Those are the people that I steer clear from. And so, there's been plenty of times where I've had to raise my hand in meetings, running organizations and said, that dumb idea was mine and I'm going to own it.
Yeah.
But and again, like we were talking about with culture, like demonstrating the values and the culture that you want to create is incredibly important. And showing particularly younger individuals coming into your or working in your organization that it's okay to fail, that, oh, well, he's able to, acknowledge when he's made a mistake. So creating that culture where that acknowledgement plays throughout the company.
Yeah. Mark, you seem to be very in tune to the human experience. And so how are you able to make the human experience better for these young people as they look at the future careers in skilled trades?
In my training in school for anthropology, one of the concept that is outdated and in the dustbin of history, I believe at this point, hopefully it is, was this concept of self and other, in the sense that anthropology, many people don't know, was also the grounds for eugenics, which led to a lot of challenges when you look at genetic makeup of individuals. Like anthropology was the home of that because it was based upon this idea that there was differences in races.
Wow.
But the concept of self and other is still relevant in the sense that the idea of, in a community, you're identifying with others. In a culture, you're identifying with others. And then there's this other group of individuals that aren't yourself, right? They don't look like you, don't talk like you, and you other them. And I think that's a concept that's still out there, but it's changed from how it sort of started in anthropology with Levi-Strauss and others who brought the concept forward. And the idea behind self and other is, I don't think collectively we need to be thinking about that, right? We're trying to build a coalition here that looks at the other or the othering of people and says, well, how do we solve for that? How do we bring those people into the conversation and understand what's happening? Your point around generational trauma with jobs moving in and out, some of the challenges we see in manufacturing and other sectors with diversity, right? Construction needs women in their workforce.
Yeah.
Other industries and sectors need women in their workforce. They need, people that don't look like what you'd expect a 50 or 60-year-old construction worker to look like. We need that diversity to come into play so that othering doesn't really exist anymore. You've got to bring those people into the conversation. You've got to demonstrate that it's something that's attainable for them. And really, the concept is as simple as how do you bring people into the tent, right? How do you make a bigger tent and bring more people in? And I think that's what we're trying to do here with the coalition is finding those organizations, those individuals, those institutions that can help us bring more people into the conversation.
I love it.
It is exactly the same thing that we have to do with respect to mental health. And that's what I learned at November. How do we bring, everyone talks about the binary function of men and women. The reality is women's mental health and men's mental health are interconnected,
Yeah.
right? We can't talk about them in binary language. We have to understand that the root cause of some of the issues that impact women negatively are the result of men's mental health and vice versa, right? So how do we solve for those issues?
Yep.
One of the things that, and just to put a very fine point on it, there's a lot of othering in domestic violence about the perpetrator, which are largely men.
Yeah.
If not almost 100%, right?
Right.
It's fairly close. So early on at November, one of the things that we did was like, well, we're a men's health charity. Like we have a reason and a need to help solve for that problem. It's not a woman's problem. It's how do we, in some cases, in the space where we know that the perpetrators are men, how do we do a better job as a men's health charity to solve for that problem? Right?
Wow.
How do we talk to men about these issues? And I think it's this idea of it's not self and other; it's just a bigger tent, and we need to solve for it differently than we have traditionally in the past. And we're not in these small little tribes, and you've got your issue and I've got my issue, and we're never going to talk to each other.
What advice would you give to someone that is either in high school or dropping out of college or leaving the military and is unsure about their career path? What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, dropping out of college or dropping out of something is not a failure.
Right.
It maybe was a misapplication of your talent or your passion, and that's not a failure. So I think that's probably most important. Second is, from where I sit, that intellectual curiosity, find it. Like, what do you care about? What do you love doing? Don't let someone define what's important to you. Understand what makes you happy, what brings you passion or joy or whatever it is, because I think those people who have found that, and I feel like I'm getting closer to that in my own career. They just show up and love what they do. And I've talked to people who are in that space, and it's incredibly inspiring to hear someone just go, love what I do. I've loved it for 30 years, or I've loved it for the last 5 years. So, my advice is to younger individuals that are either, looking for the next job or figuring out where they're going to go, coming out of the military or coming up through middle school and saying, what do I want to do with my life? Is first, don't be afraid to fail. It's not failure, it's learning. And follow your passion. I didn't know when I came out of school, I thought I was going to be Indiana Jones. I was like, I'm going to go out and find all these cool idols and do anthropology and all that kind of fun stuff. I am so far afield of that now. I'm really good at coffee table discussions about, apes and morphology and human evolution, but I don't do that. And because in some ways it was a conversation between my father and I about what he thought success was, not what I wanted to do with my life. And what that's led me to is, he and I have had this conversation over our lives. He's realized that he set me up well, but maybe the path that he wanted me to go down was not the path I needed to go down or wanted to go down. So find that passion, find that pathway, and then really lean into it. Understand what it is, right? If you're early in your career or you're trying to reach up, like, why do I want to go do this? Why does this make me want to get up every single morning and go explore what that looks like?
Mark, what haven't I asked you that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I think, as someone who went into that career track around the 4-year degree, the one thing that I've learned in our navigation through the last couple of years and moving into standing up the Skill Careers Coalition is optionality for my own son. Preparing your students, your children for those options and just broadening or widening that lens for them. So it does include a skill career and challenging your own assumptions, because I've had to challenge mine. I've had to challenge my partners about a skill career, challenge our thinking on what's important and what success looks like versus significance. But I think that's probably the one thing I leave with as an individual, as a parent, just looking at your own stigmas, perceptions about a skilled career or, a skilled trade, and challenging your own thinking about why you think that way. And that there are a lot of amazing opportunities and talented workforce out there that we could be leveraging, and letting your student, your child, explore those options for themselves and not hem them into what you think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your story and insights with us today. I'm truly grateful for your time and your dedication to this
Oh,
cause.
well, thank you. And your dedication to this as well, Jim. I'm really
Thank you.
excited by what you guys are doing.